So I've named this talk Flame On, which might mean something to some of you, I don't know. Just who remembers the band called The Birthday Party from, was it the 80s or even late 70s? Not too sure. Yeah, there's a few. Gosh, very good. Well, it's a song that starts, hands up who wants to die. Don't worry if you just put your hand up. Which is called Sun is Burning. And in that, Nick Cave has this kind of impassioned plea. He just says, flame on, over and over again throughout the song. I've no idea what the song's about. It's kind of, you know, gothic and dark and all that. But it's sort of, it's what came to mind when I was thinking about the subject matter for this morning. The third and fourth Samgrahavastus, which is not easy to say, Samgrahavastus. I'll try not to say that again. The third one is Artacharya. Arta means something like good. There's got a few artas in our Sangha. We've got Arta Priya, Arta Vardin, Arta Ketu, remember him? There's a few artas in it. And it basically, Artacharya means faring in the good, which doing good is sometimes it's rendered as, Bhante renders it as beneficial activity, which is a bit better than doing good, isn't it? But Bhante is Sangrashta, for those who don't know that. It's a term of sort of respect and affection. So that's the third Sangra. I've said it again, Sangrahavastus, and then the fourth one is Samanartata, which is usually just translated as exemplification. So why did flame on come to mind? A flame does two things, at least. It shines light and also radiates heat. I'm not sure which is the byproduct of what, but it doesn't matter. Part of that radiating heat is that it's capable of igniting other flammable substances. So it can spread, of course. One candle can light another, so that you end up with more light and more warmth, and so it goes on. And really, I think this is what these two Samgrahavastus are about. The Bodhisattva, the ideal Buddhist, which we're aspiring to be, shines the light of the Dharma through his communication, through his activities, and he sparks off others. He sets others off, as it were, inspires others, encourages others, and shows them what an authentic, inspired Dharma life can look like, and helps them become a flame themselves, which then they can spark others off, and so it goes on. So I want to invite you all to consider yourself as a flame of the Dharma. So these Samgrahavastus are essentially how the Bodhisattva creates community. So it's very outward looking, how they attract people to the Dharma and to a life in the Sangha. So in a way, it's a sort of non-cynical version of how to win friends and influence people, in a way. If that turned you off, just forget that straight away. So the Bodhisattva is the ideal Buddhist, grounded in wisdom, perfect wisdom, motivated by compassion, brimming with tireless energy to help and be useful. And yeah, so it's easy to think of the Bodhisattva as a sort of hopelessly idealistic notion, you know, sort of Shangri-La thing. But I want to invite you, just as I invited you to think of yourself as a flame, in a similar way, I'd like to invite you to consider yourself as a trainee bodhisattva or an aspiring bodhisattva, whatever works for you, as a sort of direction of travel, as a sort of this is where I'm heading, just to sort of rise ourselves up from small aims and maybe complacency. So thinking of ourselves as the bodhisattva, aspiring bodhisattva, what does the bodhisattva want? They want to help people. They want to help people spiritually. They see people lost in samsara. They see people confused about the real purpose of life. They see them ensnared in all sorts of unhelpful views and behaviors which cause themselves and those around them dukkha. And they want to help. They want to share the joy of the Dharma and help people find freedom and joy, clarity, love, meaning, and so on. So they want to pass the flame on, basically, pass the flame on to others. So when I was gearing up to privately ordain Amaradaya 2 years ago, was it? I was lucky to go and visit Bhante. This is about 8 months before he died at Adhisthana. I basically wanted to get his blessing, whatever that meant. It's not an official thing, but I just sort of wanted his blessing to sort of conduct this ordination sort of on behalf of the order, and I hadn't had a one-to-one with him for many years, so it was quite a significant time. And he, of course, gave that blessing, not in any official way, but he said, "You do have my blessing," and he said, "Pass it on." That was the kind of basic message. We're lucky to have found the Dharma. Well, he didn't say this, but this is how I would take it. Our duty is to pass it on. And pass it on is this sort of slogan of Future Dharma Fund as well. The fundraising outfit that is funding all sorts of things. Pass it on and help maintain and create context for people to practice the Dharma. So this is the meaning of Artacharya. This is the meaning of beneficial activity. What's the most beneficial you can do for someone, assuming they don't need something more basic like food or safety? You can help them grow, you can befriend them, you can communicate authentically with them, be really open and generous, inspire them to practice, encourage their efforts towards ethics, positive emotion, clear thinking, renunciation, basically encourage them to find true refuge in the three jewels. So the first question I'm going to get you to ask one another in our groups in a while is, are we doing as much as we reasonably can, reasonably and sustainably, that is, to spread the Dharma, to help spread the Dharma? Whether that's teaching yourself or helping those who teach, helping the centre or other organisations, as it were, in to do what they do. Are we doing as much as we can to sort of befriend people, to go beyond our sort of comfort? I mean, because in a way, the Sangha by definition is friendly, and we make good friends, and that can easily become comfortable. I don't know if you experience this, but it's very easy to sort of just hone in on my little gang, my little niche, my little clique even of people in the Sangha, and I think that's understandable and human, but I think there should always be that kind of outward looking energy if we possibly can. So what holds us back from that outward going generosity in terms of helping spread the Dharma. So any obstacle that the aspiring bodhisattva comes across, they address in two ways. They accumulate. Do we know what they accumulate? They accumulate the two accumulations, of course. Do we know what they are? They are merit and wisdom. And the bodhisattva needs both. We all need both. We can't. Wisdom is crucial, but it ain't enough. We also need merit, punya and jnana. So whatever gets in our way, we can, as it were, attack it with wisdom, with clear thinking, objectivity, looking deeply, seeing it for what it is, this kind of thing. Or we can attack it more gently, shall we say, or gradually, but no less importantly, through meritorious living, meritorious action. In a way, overwhelm the obstacle with goodness. So we develop our keen ethical awareness. We have plenty of generosity in our life, plenty of loving speech, plenty of useful action, a kind of momentum of skillfulness that in a way ultimately isn't really any different from wisdom itself. So they're not, merit and wisdom are not completely separate things. There's there's an overlap, but it's still a useful distinction. So just to sort of tie it in a little bit, I mentioned privately ordaining Amaradaya earlier. So for every order member, they had a private ordination and a public ordination, and the private ordination is a sort of as it were, a solitary act, just you and the private preceptor, and the person getting ordained, if commits themselves to practicing the Dharma, come what may, whether anyone else is interested or not. And in a way, it's a sort of commitment to personal depth, personal practice, personal aspiration towards realization, freedom, wisdom, whatever. And then there's the public ordination, in which you really join the order, and you recognize that you are not alone, thankfully, and that there are others with a similar aspiration, intention, and you can join forces and be a force for good in the world. And so you cooperate and work with others effectively, hopefully. So I'm sort of thinking of the private ordination sort of in a way emphasizing wisdom, and the public ordination maybe emphasizing merit, being a force of good in the world. Another way of looking at it is to think in terms of vision and transformation. Vision we can think of as wisdom. It's kind of like a clear sight of something, and hopefully if you got yourself to the point of calling yourself a Buddhist, however you think of yourself on that path, if you think of yourself as a Buddhist, then you have a sense of vision. You've got some sense of what the Buddhist path is about, where it's heading, what kind of qualities you're trying to develop, and so forth. But however clear you are on those values and principles, and even some of the teachings you might be very clear on, you can explain, prateach it samutpada, and so forth. That still needs transformation. That still needs a whole lifetime, as it were, of living it out. Merit is not, as I think Artavad in his quote this morning, I was only half listening, I'm afraid, but I think it's something about, you've got wisdom, which is in a way private, and you've got love, which is kind of like the public expression of that, or the living out of that, the expression of that. And love, of course, is another way of saying meritorious action, beneficial action, ethical action, behavior based in metta, so forth. So yeah, so we could have, say, I mean, Dayanandi yesterday, I think, beautifully conjured up a sense of interconnectedness through the analogy of the trees and so forth. But in a way, as you said, I think the COVID situation sort of really highlights very clearly how we are not separate and we are not independent in any way whatsoever. So we can be clear of that in a wisdom kind of way. But that understanding of interconnectedness has to be lived out and has to be expressed, and that is basically the Dharma, is ethics, meditation, loving kindness. All that is an expression of interconnectedness. It's an expression of wisdom. See what I mean? It's a bit hard on Zoom because you don't get a lot of feedback compared to being in the body, but there's a few thumbs up, thank you. I'll keep going then. So what holds us back? That was where I was starting with all this. So yeah, whatever holds us back we can attack with, as it were, wisdom or merit. There's the sort of sharp edge of wisdom, and there's the kind of blunter but it's essential merit approach as well. So if we say, I can't think of myself as a bodhisattva, I can't think of myself as helping to spread the Dharma, I lack confidence. That's one of the kind of classic reasons people would give for not doing more. And lack of confidence is a complex thing, of course. I'm not going to pretend to understand all the conditions at play. It's very complex. There's probably decades of conditioning involved and habit and all that. But I would just sort of encourage people to not accept it as a kind of given, don't accept yourself, basically, was one of the things Bhante urges to consider. Don't just sort of settle down into this is what I'm like, this is me, nothing I can do. We can change lack of confidence. It's probably going to be a gradual thing. So there's a sort of bit more of a meritorious approach, should we say. But if we took the wisdom approach, we would do what basically what all Buddhism asks us to do, which is basically look. Buddhism just wants, or the Buddha just wants us to look at our experience closely and honestly and deeply and rigorously. What is actually the case, what is going on, and on whatever topic it's asking us to do that. So lack of confidence, just have a real good look at it. Is the narrative that we tell ourselves like some kind of objective truth? There's some kind of set in stone, this is the way it is for me forever kind of thing. Could I change the narrative? Could I have a narrative that is, I'm an aspiring bodhisattva, I'm not going to let my subjective feelings and unhelpful narratives prevent me from making the best contribution I can, or something like that. It's probably a bit long, that, isn't it? But some kind of narrative that kind of sort of shakes the assumptions and challenges us to, in a way, think of ourselves as a vessel of the Dharma, as a flame that can set the world on fire in a good way. Yes, there's a looking approach. So maybe the merit approach for lack of confidence would be a kind of building confidence in the Dharma through study, building confidence in Bhante as our primary teacher, our founder, again through reading, through listening, through discussion, through developing friendship with especially people who are clearer and more confident, more committed. We build confidence through action, through merit of metta, ethical action, puja, devotion, generosity, all that builds confidence. So when I'm talking about merit, I'm not talking about some kind of literal quantifiable thing that we've got in the bank, as it were. You might have heard the story of some Hindu sadhu or yogi that Bhante heard of, who after like many years of ascetic practice decided to sell his merit and set up in business. I'd say good on you. I say, you know what I mean? That's ingenious. But I would argue, yeah, at least in Buddhism, you can't sell your merit, I'm afraid. I mean, we give it away, don't we? There's that attitude of non-attachment and other regardingness. Merit is more of a bit like karma. It's a kind of a momentum again. It's a kind of direction. Yeah. So, I'm on track, I think, for these 20 minutes. So have a think about what holds you back from flaming on. Shyness is a similar thing. Laziness, I'm very familiar with. The pull of the comfortable. Self-preoccupation. Nursing our doubts so that we never really start. Fear of difficulties. Over busyness. Unhelpful comparison with others. Pessimism, etc., etc. I'm sure we've all got our own favourites, you know, of what kind of holds us back from, you know, really just getting stuck in. Yeah, it's much easier not to bother, isn't it? Basically, it's much easier not to flame on. It would have been much easier for me to keep quiet when we were talking about who's going to do what on this weekend. But here I am, having a go. Soon it's going to be Dharma Day. And, you know, in a way, Dharma Day celebrates, of course, the Buddha successfully communicating the Dharma. But not long after that, the Buddha encouraged his now arahant disciples to, you know, go forth, not go forth and multiply, but except in the sense of Sangha, go forth and teach the Dharma for the benefit and the happiness of all, and let no two of you go in the same direction. So I think in a way that's the kind of that's the image I would say. I mean, it sounds a bit solitary. I'm not suggesting we have to go on our own. We could do in teams, but my encouragement is to think of ourselves as that outward going force that the world really needs. And, you know, even if we lack confidence or in whatever way, carry on anyway, you know, contribute in any case. So I only used the word duty once in that talk. I do think of it as our duty to do that. If you really value what you think the Dharma has given you in your life, I would argue that it's your duty to pass that on. I mean, I know it's not the favourite word for people, duty. It's a bit heavy, a bit overbearing or something. I'm not suggesting we hit ourselves over the head with it, but it's more like just another way of talking about a compassionate response, really. It's our duty to live out that compassionate response to the world.